Well, I want to take a chance just to introduce you first. And my first memory of meeting you, we actually connected through LinkedIn, of all places. And I use a lot of social media in my music business. But as I've mentioned in videos before, LinkedIn has been a really great place for me to network and meet more serious indie artists, producers, musicians all over the world. And that's where you and I met each other, which is really, really cool. So when I first met you, we were just kind of sharing music back and forth. I realized very quickly that you are somebody who produces a lot of music at a rapid pace. And I felt like, wow, this guy is releasing songs, like several songs a week, almost seems like. I was really amazed by how fast you were producing music and releasing it. I thought maybe you had an army of people helping you out or something. And then I really started listening to your music, and I kind of looked at it at a deeper level, and I realized your music is intriguing to me because on the one hand, you don't follow typical song structures like what you hear in pop music all the time. Your song structures are more unique, but I think like really groove oriented. When I listen to your music, I hear a lot of groove and I hear a lot of rhythmic elements built in and a blending of different genres and things like that. But you always keep it interesting and you always create a great atmosphere in your music. And so, with that, I was actually hoping to expose you and your music to my audience too, because I think more people need to hear your music and get to know you a little bit. So you have two names, right? So one name is Jeremy, and you mentioned that since I'm your friend, I'm allowed to call you that. But you also have a name, Slothguard. And so I guess the first thing I need to ask you is, which one should people call you, and where did the name Slothguard come from?
Well, for my professional, I prefer to be called Slothguard, but most people that I do know, like yourself, calls me Jeremy. The name, believe it or not, came from, one of those stupid war games that people dump huge amounts of money into. I had gotten one of those. It was a Viking game, and I started playing it, and I had to come up with a name, so I came up with Slothguard, and it just has kind of stuck. I've had about 10 years now.
It's kind of like, I remember back in the 1990s, I was trying to create a Gmail account, and I kept typing in little names, and it may have been the early 2000s. I can't remember, whenever Gmail first came out. But I kept typing in different names, and I kept rejecting them because somebody had already used them. Finally, I just started typing in letters until I figured out something that no one had used before. And it created a name. And the problem is now, 25 years later or whatever, that name is stuck with me. Like it is my email and my Google personality. So I get how those things kind of happen, but thank you for giving me the freedom to call you Jeremy too. It's an honor. So, well, tell me a little bit about your connection with music. I'd love to know kind of some of your earliest memories of the world of music.
Well, as a child, I grew up, the music was playing all the time. It was the 70s, so music literally was playing all the time. There's no TV hardly or anything, so that's what we did. And that's how I kind of got my interest into it. I decided I wanted to play music. I heard all kinds of stuff, and I was poor, so I figured the cheapest instrument would be a drum kit. Boy, was I wrong.
Yes, you were.
But it was the easiest thing for me to play at the time.
I think a drum kit is pretty expensive on the one hand, but on the other hand, I've gone to cities and I hear guys playing on upside down Home Depot buckets, and it sounds amazing, So on the one hand, there's the equipment and how good the equipment is, but on the other hand, it's really like, how are you using it and what are you getting from it, right? So, and I remember you told me recently that your first drum kit was sort of a metallic blue kit, not even sure what brand it was, but some Zildjian cymbals and Did you have like a little room in your house where your parents let you play that thing?
I had a room and I had my bedroom in the basement and I had it set up. I could send you a picture of the drum kit. I still have it.
Absolutely. I'm going to definitely post that in this video then. That is super cool. And so then what happened? Well, first of all, the music from the 1970s seemed to have an impact on you. Like, do you remember any artists or bands or things from back then that really kind of stuck with you?
There was Hendrix, of course, the Cream, the Yardbirds, the Birds. Geez, there's just so many to go over. I've still got most of their albums from my childhood sitting out in the other room on vinyl, still in mono.
That is super cool. Maybe you can help settle an argument since you brought up the word vinyl. I'm going to go on a tangent for a second, but does vinyl sound better than digital?
I think it is. I think it's more of a warmer, homey sound because, it's slapped on vinyl. And so therefore you hear all the mistakes on vinyl versus digital, which guys like you and me can swipe and get rid of that mistake.
Yeah, trust me, I get rid of a lot of mistakes.
Me too, believe it or not.
Well, I think it was a great time to grow up, and you and I are the same age, and we had kind of some of the same background. I started off as a drummer too, and I grew up listening to some of that music. Now, was that music that your parents were listening to, and then you got exposed to it, or did you find it some other way?
It was my parents. They were listening to it.
Yeah, because in the 1970s, when I was growing up, it was like Jim Croce, John Denver, a lot of folk music and stuff like that. And it wasn't really until the 80s when I was, getting to be a little older where I got into the rock music. And man, a lot of Van Halen back then, I'll tell you that much. But then, as I got older, then I looked back at the 1970s and kind of reconnected with some of those musicians and bands that you were talking about that you got the first time around. So it's pretty cool. But then there came a point you realized that you wanted to make music instead of just listen to it. What caused that transition to happen?
Let's see here. I heard the song Run for the Hills, and that made me want to be a drummer. It truly did. I was just like, wow, this is the most intense Christian band I've ever heard in my entire life. And they still run today. I'm not going to say who they are because of, copyright laws, and I don't like being slapped by the FCC.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll put a link to that song in the description of the video because I want to make sure that people can hear it. And by the way, I'll definitely put some links to a few of your more recent songs too, and maybe one of your favorites from your collection, so that people can hear your music after they check out this interview. So I kind of understand how you got into music, and I know a little bit about your first drum kit. Yeah, somehow you've become like a multi-instrumentalist, and you do a lot more than just like get into the percussive elements of things. So how many instruments do you know how to play, and how did you learn them?
I pretty much only really proficient in bass guitar. Believe it or not, I don't know if you can see it or not, this nice Yamaha keyboard I use for a lot of stuff, a lot of effects. I change tones and make it sound like real live instruments.
Well, I'm looking at your instrument collection behind you, and I see what looks like a bass guitar behind your right shoulder. And then,
my homemade bass.
Oh, is it homemade? It looks almost like a Fender headstock.
Yeah, it's strict. It is straight up homemade.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, it's just pieces I put together from a bunch of basses that somebody gave me, and I didn't have the money to buy a bass, so I built myself one.
That's amazing. It doesn't surprise me at all. As I'm getting to know you more and more, you're industrious and like you're going to find a way somehow. And your bass sounds good, man. I've heard it now, obviously in a lot of different music.
Be amazed what you can do with a microphone and some cardboard with some stuff inside of it.
It's interesting. And tell me about the other guitar there behind your left shoulder.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
This is actually a Squire M80.
Okay, Squire M80, and then you have an acoustic to your right.
Yeah, it's a Samick.
I've heard you play acoustic guitar, and it sounds fantastic. I've heard you play bass. I've heard you do a lot of different things, and to me, it all sounds really good. And it's interesting. You held up the cardboard and how you make percussion.
Just sometimes, that's if I need just a light percussion, I'll use that. If I heavy percussion, well, if I've got not as cool of a drum kit that you have back there, but I have like one on my pad, like of a phone kind of thing, and I use that as a drum kit sometimes too.
It goes back to the flipped upside down Home Depot bucket. It's like it doesn't matter. It really just matters what are you pulling out of it, And like that, like the electronic kit back there, it serves a lot of purposes. But the reason I got it is because I live in a quiet house with 3 kids, and I had to have something I could play at 1 a.m. without waking everybody up.
Oh yeah, if I could afford one, I'd have an electronic kit too.
but on the other hand, nothing beats an acoustic drum kit. Nothing beats it from a drummer's point of view. So I've kind of described your sound a little bit, but I would like to know, how do you describe your sound?
Well, Kevin, that's a tough thing. I describe it as music like no other that takes you places and hopefully gives your soul a little bit of a break for the day, even if it's just for the 3 or 4 minutes of the song or however long they are.
Yeah, it definitely does that too. I think we're kind of saying the same thing. Like when I listen to your music, I hear an ambiance and a mood. I hear an emotion. Like every one of your songs draws a completely different emotion out of me, which is really unique. And again, the percussive and rhythmic elements, and like I said, you don't follow a traditional song structure all the time. And for me, that's a real plus. Like it's one of the reasons that I like your music so much, because it keeps me interested. And when I listen to your music, I also hear, at least I feel like I hear what you were going for, like the potential that you were going for. And how do you know when your songs are done? Like, how do you know when a song is complete and you're finished and you're ready to send it out into the world?
Well, no song is really ever complete. I mean, everybody does remixes of songs all the time, but I'd have to say when I think it sounds like the public is going to be able to hear it or understand it, and not be confused by. Yes, I do put a lot of stuff in my songs, not be confused by what's going on. It's not an overload.
It's interesting because you have the complete freedom, especially based on not feeling obligated to stick to a particular song structure. Like a verse chorus, bridge chorus verse, or whatever. Like that, you almost always hear some variation of that. But you have like a complete freedom almost in what you're doing, and so I guess you get the final say on when that thing is done.
True.
And a lot of your music is instrumental too. And sometimes I hear vocals. Sometimes I've heard collaborations that you've done too. But oftentimes your music is instrumental. Is that always been the case?
For the most part, I'm not a very good singer, and I don't know a lot of people that can sing or that will work for nothing. So, yeah, most of it's instrumental. Sometimes I'll throw my voice in there. I don't sound anything like I do right now. For all the listeners out there, it is me, but I've just changed my voice with effects.
How do you know what to start with when you're thinking about writing a song? Like you and I were talking before, for me, I think of an artist with a blank canvas and a paintbrush, and it's like very hard for a lot of people to know where to begin. And taking that first paint stroke is like nerve-wracking for a lot of people, including me, because you're like, whatever I do first, everything is going to be built on that and be influenced by that. And so it's like, ooh, scary in a way. But for you, I would love to know, like, what sparks that song idea, and how do you get started on writing your songs?
Kevin, I like that whole artist thing. that you got there, the whole analogy of that. I would say I'm the guy who takes the bucket of paint and just throws it on the canvas and puts stuff around it to make it look like a beautiful painting. That would be about how I would say that. As far as inspiration, man, it's the world around me, all of the noises, everything that I hear just is music to me, and I just try to replicate it the best that I can with what I've got.
Maybe you're just out and about and you'll hear something and it'll strike you in some way and it'll stick in your brain, and then you come back into your studio and try to figure out how to replicate it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
If I think about songwriters, and I know that you have an opinion about the difference between a songwriter and a composer, and I'm going to ask you about that in a second, but if I think about songwriters, like traditionally, a songwriter will grab their guitar or their piano or whatever and just start hashing out a song. And different people, it comes from different places within them. But I think it's really intriguing that you're actually drawing from the world and bringing that into your creation. That's fascinating. I'd like everyone who's watching this to get your opinion on the difference between a composer and a songwriter.
Okay. A songwriter, like you said, writes for other people. They write what other people want. They try to write the mainstream. A composer writes for themselves. They write what they want for themselves.
Honestly, I always thought composer is just a more pretentious way of saying songwriter, but that is so not true. I think what you said is actually very true, and honestly, that's how I'd like to think of myself too. And if I catch myself writing music that I think somebody would like, then I think I'm on the wrong track, actually, right? Because to your point, if you're a composer, you should be writing something that speaks to your own soul and your own vision and what you're trying to accomplish with that craft, right?
Correct. That's how I think about it anyway.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I love that perspective very much. Well, now, you've told me a little bit about some of your musical influences and talked about the 1970s in particular and the Byrds and Cream and some other bands. But I'm also kind of curious, now you've mentioned that you pull ideas from the entire world into your music, but what type of non-musical influences would you say kind of shape your art and your craft? Like any books or movies or other things that inspire you musically?
I try to keep a full open mind when I listen to other people's music or movies, stuff like that. Unfortunately I critique when I listen to stuff like that, like, oh man, they should have done that instead or that there. So if I go into that mindset, I just not comfortable or happy listening to the music. But I would have to say, I'm going to hate to quote Jimi Hendrix on this, but sometimes colors, man. Sometimes combinations of colors will inspire music.
That's interesting to me. One of my favorite musicians is Devin Townsend, and he lives up in Canada, not too far from where I live, but he actually sees colors when he hears music and writes music sometimes based on colors and color combinations, and it's really fascinating. It sounds like maybe you've got a little bit of that going on too.
I could. It's hard saying, man. I just work with what I got.
That's fascinating, man. So, do you ever get into a creative rut or like a moment when you're just not feeling inspired? And if that happens, how do you get yourself out of that?
Well, all of us, doesn't matter who you are, we all suffer with a little bit of that big depression thing. And we all get a little bit of ruddy. We don't want to do nothing. We're cranky, whiny, I myself, I'll binge watch something on TV, usually an action series or a documentary or something, and just completely clear my mind. And eventually it comes back. I never think to myself, oh, no, it's never going to come back, because I don't want to curse myself.
But it always comes back.
Oh, you got to. If you if you burn your brain out, it's the only one you got. It's about one of the only organs you can't get replaced these days. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you burn the brain out, you burn the brain out. There's many famous people that have burned out way before their time.
Well, give it time. Pretty soon you can fix that brain, you know?
Right?
I'm not so sure about that, actually. Well, I've already mentioned you release a lot of music and you produce a lot of music. Like you do it all, right? Like from start to finish, from coming up with the spark of an idea for a song to recording it and then producing it and releasing it.
Yes, Kevin, as you would say, I'm a one-man band. It's just me. The advertising, the artwork, just pretty much is just me. I mean, I get a chance to collaborate with people, as nice as you once in a while, and we get to change a few things that I don't have to do anymore. But, yeah, most of the time it is just me. I've tried to get other people, but my music's a little out there for them and they just don't quite understand it and they don't want to.
But when it comes to production, I want to learn about this because you know a lot and you've taught me a lot. Even last week, an example of a new recording, or excuse me, a new production process that you taught me, which I never knew before, and I'm constantly learning from you. So, but when it comes to recording and production, like, what's your favorite part of that side of music?
Oh man, that's so tough. I love it all. It's just the challenge of doing it and getting it to work. I'd have to say probably though my favorite is the end. When I get to hold my breath and click that button and say, post, let other people listen to it, see what happens. That's probably my favorite part.
That is amazing, that feeling. Like, yeah, you're like click, and it goes out to the world, and it's like all the opportunity in the world right there. Like, who knows who's going to hear this thing? Someone's going to hear it though, and the right person eventually is going to hear it and go, "Oh my gosh, this is cool." That's probably my favorite part too. Again, we have a lot in common, so I guess that doesn't surprise me too much. You mentioned that you do some collaborating here and there. Maybe you'd like to do it a little bit more often. But when you do collaborations, how do you like work on developing ideas and going back and forth with other musicians like that to create a song?
Well, most of the collaborations I have done, other than with you, is just been write a piece of music, hand it off, somebody else adds something to it, and that's just kind of how it rolls. I kind of feel like a mastermind in that sense, I guess, is, I hand off something to somebody and say, here, put something on it. What do you think? You're free to do with what you want because I'm just doing what I want. So go ahead and put what you want and we'll see if it works out.
That's like a high level of trust but it's open-mindedness too. It's really, I think for a lot of people it's really hard to let go of a creation and let somebody else mold it or change it or add or remove things from it. I think a lot of people would really struggle with that, but for you it seems almost like something you're inviting. Like, yeah, like go for it. Try something new. I don't know. Are you thinking maybe I'll learn something new from all of this, or maybe something even cooler will come from it, or at least something that I hadn't expected? Or what is it about you that makes you open to that kind of collaboration?
Well, I've been, we'll say financially poor 98% of my life. So, when you live in situations like that, you learn to share or you learn not to share, whichever way it goes. But, I've traveled all over the world and I've seen some pretty nasty, poor stuff, and these people are sharing to survive. So, in music today, as hard as it is to get out there, especially for indie artists, if we work together and just help each other out and not necessarily expect anything in return other than just the joy of helping, we will grow and take over.
Are there any new techniques or different sounds that you've been working on recently that you've been um, implementing in your music these days?
Well, I haven't really implemented it yet. I'm still playing with it and working on it, but I'm trying to record sounds in a bypass box.
A bypass box. So does that give it like a next room over kind of a sound? Like when you're walking by, let's say you're in a downtown urban area and you're walking by a club and you can hear the music, but only certain frequencies of it.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Or like being trapped in a small room with a band.
Oh, so it's like the opposite of that then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had it completely wrong.
Well, it could go either way depending on how you create the box.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, yeah. Wow, I can't wait to hear that when you put it up on. Now, what platforms do you tend to release your music to?
Well, these days I mostly release my music on YouTube video and SoundCloud. Those are where I get most of my success. Unfortunately, due to some things that I cannot control, I have to pull my music off of DistroKid and a few other places that I have, which is okay. I'm still going to keep creating. It's still going to get out there. I still have two different platforms that people can check out for free and check my music out and don't have to pay anything to see it.
Well, I'll tell you one other thing too. Spotify, it has its fan club and it also has its detractors, but I also think Spotify has been the biggest hub for AI music, spam music. I mean, they even deleted something like 75 million of their own catalog just a couple of months ago because it's all AI and spam. And I have a feeling that the places that you're publishing your music more likely to have more authentic, or at least a higher percentage of more authentic music there. So I definitely don't see it as a negative. And those are good platforms, definitely good platforms. So, well, let's do this because this video is about to die in about 3 or 4 minutes. It's going to expire. So if you still have a few more minutes, I'd like to start a new session and ask you a few more things. Would that be okay? Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, as we've been talking a lot about your process and how you go about writing music and how you go about producing your music, but I want to also learn from you how your music has kind of evolved over time.
Well, I think it gets better and more complex over time. The more I learn and the more I understand what I can get away with and what I can't get away with, I think it gets better. I guess in my own ears, I don't know about others, but at least in my own ears, it does.
Well, that's interesting because maybe for a lot of people, they have a sense of their music maturing. Like I've talked to other songwriters that have said, as I get older, my music becomes more mature and things like that. I think when I hear your music too, and maybe what I hear you describing is that you're also taking more risks maybe as time goes on. Does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'll agree with that. More risks.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool, man. Well, I'm glad that I met you at the time I met you. Then maybe your music was boring back in the day. I don't know. No, I doubt it. I really doubt it. Well, now, if you had to take a wild guess, how many songs would you say that you've written over the years?
No, actually out in the world or recorded, you mean, or just in general, in general?
Well, I kind of would like to know both, actually.
Well, I probably have to say thousands in general. Out there in the world, 115.
Wow. So if you think back on all those songs that you've written, whether or not it's one that you published or not, is there one or two that kind of sticks in your mind that has like real deep personal meaning to you?
Okay, well, let's go with Dirt Racer. I have a buddy who is just obsessed with, you know, 4x4 racing, Baja, stuff like that. He had a company for a while where he made roll cages, things like that. And he was just wanting to do something cool for his Facebook page. So I told him I would write him a song. And he's a metalhead, never really written metal before. So I figured I'd just give it a shot. And I put it out there and asked if anybody wanted to write lyrics for this song I was calling Dirt Racer, a metal song. And well, Mick Walker was like, yeah, sure. Blew me away. The Mick Walker himself said, cool. And he wrote it. So that's, that's the first time I've done anything with anybody that was actually famous.
So, well, now I have to ask, how did you meet Mick? Like, how do you guys know each other?
Same way as I met you.
Just through social media, huh?
Just at the same platform.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's a cool dude. I love his music. And that's awesome that you guys had that collaboration together. And I've definitely heard that song a few times. It's a good one. Well, I'll put a link for that in the description so that a lot of people can check it out. That's super cool, man. Well, now, as you've been showing me your instruments and the fact that you built your own bass and you can make a drum kit out of a piece of cardboard if you want to, it seems like the sky's the limit. But I also want to know, like, as an artist, what are some of the challenges and what are the biggest things that you've overcome to get your music completed and to write your music and to produce your music?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing would be, that it is a financial burden to do, regardless of how you do it, whether you do it the way you do it or the way I'm going to tell you that I end up doing it, is, I had an old computer. First, I started out, I got some freeware called Cubase.
Right.
And I started using Cubase. And then I joined up with a band and we were using Pro Tools for a little bit on that. Then I moved away from the band and I still continued to use Cubase till I got an iPhone with a little thing called GarageBand on it.
Right.
And if you end up buying or getting the full version of GarageBand, it literally is a Pro Suite Studio. And it came on my phone for free. So I just started using it, and that's how I was able to get so much music out as I can record anywhere I'm at.
Man, that's so cool.
See, I plug everything into this.
Is that a thumb drive? What is that?
This is a Joy-Yo Momix cab. Basically, I can plug any instrument into this side, headphones or monitor, and write directly into my iPhone, and it plugs right into my GarageBand. So I can put all of my wonderful instruments onto my iPhone, and I don't have to use the really old Cubase that I'm operating off, which is, 20 years old.
Oh my gosh, you are like ahead of your time in a way. Like in one way, you're using 20-year-old DAW, but on the other hand, you're like way ahead of your time with using your phone like that. I never even heard about that little device. That is intriguing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and if you got multi-track. But this is a Monkey, so it's a little bit more expensive than that little Joy-Yo is, but yeah.
What brand is that little box?
Which one? The Monkey?
The multi-band. What is that?
That's a Monkey.
Wow. That is super cool, man.
And it's just a pocket multi-channel mixer.
So when you think of yourself in terms of music production or in terms of being an artist and a musician, how do you define achievement for yourself? Like, how do you know, like, how do you feel, or I should say, when do you feel successful?
This is going to sound totally horrible because, most people are chasing the numbers or chasing this or chasing that. If I can get one person that I do not know to enjoy my music and put a thumbs up on it, then I have success.
Well, you're already there then, man.
Yeah.
You got me.
I mean, honestly, my biggest song has only hit about 1.5K views, and that's it. I have thousands of followers on SoundCloud, but my music doesn't get listened to because it's just a little off for people. They're not ready to accept it yet.
I guess the one good thing about Spotify or even Apple Music or whatever is that they're a little bit more accessible to a bigger audience. But all that being said, man, I'd rather have 1,000 people that listen to my song that really truly listened and got into it and were engaging with it, rather than 500,000 that are kind of passively listening, or maybe it's background music. You don't make background music. You make music that people, you grab their attention. You kind of force them to go, look, check this out. This is art. And to me that's a really good thing, actually. So well, thinking about your career in music then, is there a moment or two that you can think to that you'll never forget? Just something unforgettable that happened through this music world.
Oh man, yeah, actually there is. I think I was in junior high school, or maybe I was a freshman in high school. The music teacher, guy's name was Grant Vance, a wonderful guy, wonderful music teacher. He brought me with him to this great big huge concert. I don't know if you're ever familiar with schools and how they all get together and they get together and play music and stuff. And I was just supposed to be there to help set stuff up. And he dropped me in, handed me a couple of great big huge sticks and said, okay, you're going to go play the kettle drums for this set, for this. No music. I can't read music. I have no idea what I'm doing. He just handed them to me and I just played kettle drums and nobody complained.
Oh my gosh, that's fascinating. But that wasn't your first exposure to drums, right? That was after you had that little blue drum kit that you were telling me about.
Yeah. That was, that was during my younger periods, but that was the first time that I had actually played out in public. I was just kind of dropped in. Here, you figure it out. There's a couple of thousand people here. Hopefully you can play it good with everybody else and you don't mess up the entire orchestra.
Oh my gosh, that must have been intimidating.
Oh man, I almost soiled myself.
Well, now we're talking about the beginning of your career and kind of where it all started. And if you're thinking about people that may be watching this video, maybe younger people, maybe people who are just getting started in the world of music and, thinking about where they want to take it for themselves. And then thinking back on your own career and your path as a musician, like, is there any advice that you would give to a younger you if you could go back and do that?
Actually, yeah, I would. I would tell myself to read more on music theory at an earlier age, try to have an understanding of the rules that everybody else wants to play by. And I would say get involved with jamming with as many people as you possibly can, even if it's not your style of music, because the more you know and the more music that you understand, the better of a music writer or composer you will be.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I really love that idea about a lot of collaboration and getting a lot of exposure to all different styles and techniques and just different personalities. That's really good advice. And I hope that a lot of people do that. I hope more and more that people do that. Well, now, and again, as you're thinking about your career as a musician, when it's all said and done, 50 more years from now, let's say, what do you like? What kind of an artist do you hope to be remembered as?
Well, I hope to be remembered as somebody who started something.
Like a musical movement of some sort, or what? Tell me more what you mean.
Yeah, maybe a movement or just the idea of that, music is structured, but just because it's in a book and tells you this is how it has to be, that's how it has to be. I've proven it does not have to be that way.
But it's interesting to me that you said if you could go and give your younger self advice, one of the things would be to learn more about theory. And And I got to tell you, I also don't know how to read music. And there's been a lot of times where I thought, man, I wish I could read music. It seems like it would open up some doors for me. But on the other hand, maybe much like yourself, I also think it's caused me to write music differently than most people do. You know, sometimes people say, like, how did you come up with that? And I always say the same thing. It's because I don't know what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess only the listeners really know how they feel when they listen to it.
Well, and as you're thinking about just music in general and the world of music and independent artists like you and me, what do you think the future holds? Like, what is the future going to look like for indie artists? And again, if there's maybe a young musician watching this interview and thinking about their future, what do you think the music world is going to look like for somebody who's just getting started like that?
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to start bashing AI, but we all know about the whole AI thing and the fake bands and Spotify and everywhere else. And that right there really, I think, is going to be holding back indie music for a little bit because there's so much of that and so many people are using it to try to sneak into stuff. They'll use a little bit of AI and put a little bit of their stuff in there. And it's not attractive and people are noticing.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Decide we don't need, and we're not going to use AI for anything. I mean, don't get me wrong, a drum machine, I do not believe is AI.
Yeah, it's not. It's a drum machine is just a loop.
Yeah. I mean, so,
Yeah.
I mean, if we can convince people that AI for music is not where we want to go, indie artists will thrive. But as long as AI is there, we're going to slow down a little bit because people are going to be less trusting of independent or indie artists.
I agree. I mean, I think you mentioned that you hope to start a movement, and that you hope to be known for starting a movement in the world of music and creating something in that way. I'm going to do a shameless plug because I am actually on a movement right now to drive the idea of 100% human made music. And I'm not sure exactly what that looks like or anything, but I know that you're on board with it. So I'll put a little tag on this video and others just to celebrate that. But I agree. I think it can be like, on the one hand, people feel like if you're an artist or a musician, you feel like, well, anybody can just hop on Suno and type a few words in and have a song made. You feel like something's being taken from you almost, because like that was my role in the past. That's what I did. Like I'm the songwriter or the composer and the musician, and now a computer's doing it all for me. And it can feel like something's being taken from you. But I also have a strong feeling, maybe I'm wrong, but I have a strong feeling that musicians and artists will always have a place, because I think the truth is that you're always forging new boundaries and creating new things that haven't been heard of before or discovered before. And that is something, at least from my understanding, AI is just replicating what's already been done, maybe in different ways, and maybe it's melding things together or whatever. But I just don't believe that, like a person can do, I just don't believe that an AI will be able to forge into the unknown and develop something so unique like a person could do. Well, we'll see if that's true or not, and I'll get off my soapbox now. But it's something I've thought about quite a bit, and I'm intrigued by it. So,
well, I'm fully behind it myself. I love the logo, and yeah, you can run the logo with this if you want to. I'm cool with it. I am 100% human generated.
The logo's actually right here. You just don't know it because you haven't seen the finished product yet, but it'll be there. So I just wanted to ask you one last thing, and I know you're a busy guy. I'm going to let you get on with your day, but I just want to know, like, kind of what's next for you, either creatively or personally.
I just hope to keep striving on. hope to be doing a lot more collaborations with people. You know, I mean, I'm a collaborator that doesn't expect much in return. I mean, you know, put my name that I helped you out on there, and that's cool by me, or mention me. But you know, other than that, that's all I really need. I just out there just trying to help people make music and understand how to make music. And you know, maybe I can help, maybe I can't. Who knows?
Well, you and I have a secret band that we haven't told anyone about, and I'm not going to spill the beans on this video. We actually have what I'm calling a ghost band, but it's an opportunity for you and I to collaborate, and it's been fantastic. It's really been eye-opening for me. I've learned a lot from you. I've been inspired by you as a musician and as a producer. So I just want to say, as we're wrapping up here, thank you for that. Sincerely, I appreciate it, and I'm excited to keep making more music with you. Now, how shall people get in contact with you if they want to collaborate with you?
You can contact me on LinkedIn,
Okay.
Linktree,
Okay.
or you can just send me an email at Slothguard The Crazy Viking at AOL.com.
Awesome. So Linktree, LinkedIn, and also your email. And I'll put all those in the description of the video too, so that people can find you. And I guarantee you some people are going to watch this and then they're going to listen to your music and you're going to start getting a few calls from people. So I'm excited to see, some of those future collaborations. Well, again, I truly appreciate it. Thank you for doing this interview with me today. It meant the world to me, and be excited for what's next, my friend.
Oh, Kevin, I appreciate it, man. I learn from you every time I talk to you and listen to your stuff also, man. It's just a joy to work with you.
Oh, thank you, brother. Okay. Well, I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
All right. Cheers, man.